Right, BRICS. You've probably seen that word pop up in a headline and thought, is that a new cryptocurrency I should have bought yesterday? Or maybe, is that the sound a cartoon villain makes when a piano falls on him? The answer, disappointingly, is no. BRICS is an acronym like NATO or KFC, but for a group of countries, specifically Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And yeah, I know what you're thinking. That collection of countries sounds less like a coherent geopolitical alliance and more like the guest list for the world's most awkward dinner party. And honestly, you're not entirely wrong, but this group, this BRICS, is a very big deal, and it's quietly trying to rewrite the rules of the global economy. So why should you, a person who is probably busy trying to figure out if that avocado is ripe or just pretending to be, care about this? Well, because these 5 countries represent over 40% of the world's population. That's more than 3 billion people. To put that in perspective, if the BRICS nations held a potluck, they'd need a stadium-sized picnic blanket and a truly staggering amount of potato salad. They also account for a huge and growing chunk of the world's economic activity. They are, in essence, the planet's emerging powerhouses, and they've decided that they're a little tired of the old guard, countries like the United States and its Western allies, calling all the shots. They've banded together to create a sort of alternative club, a club for the countries that weren't invited to the cool kids table after World War II. Believe it or not, BRICS didn't start with a dramatic summit on a mountaintop. No, its origin is far more mundane and, frankly, far more fitting for our modern era. It started in an office. Specifically, the office of a Goldman Sachs economist named Jim O'Neill back in 2001. He wasn't trying to start a political revolution, he was just trying to make rich people richer by pointing out the next big thing. He looked at the global economy and identified 4 large, fast-growing markets that he thought would be the engines of world growth in the coming decades: Brazil, Russia, India, and China. He slapped their initials together and called them the BRICS. It was just a catchy investment term. For years, that's all it was, a buzzword for Wall Street types. Oh, you've got to get into the BRICS, darling, the returns are fabulous. It was a label created by the very Western capitalist system it now seeks to challenge. The irony is so thick you could spread it on toast. But then, something funny happened. The countries themselves looked at this acronym and thought, hey, that's not a bad idea. They saw they had something in common. They were all big, they were all growing, and they all felt a bit like they were on the outside looking in when it came to global decision-making bodies like the World Bank or the International Monetary Fund. So they decided to take the label and run with it. To understand BRICS, you have to understand the wildly different personalities that make up this group. It's less like the Avengers and more like a reality show cast chosen for maximum drama. First up, we have Brazil. Think of Brazil as the fun, laid-back member who's a global superstar in agriculture. It's an absolute giant when it comes to producing soybeans, beef, and coffee. Next, we have Russia. Russia is the group's moody, complicated elder. It brings the military muscle and the vast energy reserves. Then there's India, the world's largest democracy and a rising tech and services giant. India is the group's great balancing act. On one hand, it shares the desire for a more multipolar world. On the other hand, it has a deeply complicated and often hostile relationship with its neighbor and fellow BRICS member China. And that brings us to the elephant in the room, or rather, the panda, China. China is without a doubt the group's economic engine. Its economy is larger than the other 4 members combined. Finally, we have South Africa, the newest and smallest member economically speaking. South Africa is the gateway to Africa. Its inclusion was a strategic move to make BRICS a more globally representative group. So you have the agricultural giant, the military power, the democratic balancer, the economic juggernaut, and the continental connector. It's honestly a miracle they can agree on a time to meet, let alone how to reshape the world. So what do these countries actually do together? Beyond the annual summit where leaders stand in a line for a photo that looks like the poster for a very serious international film festival, well, their cooperation happens on 2 main levels, economics and politics. And they've built some real machinery to make it happen. Economically, their biggest play is to reduce their dependence on the US dollar. The dollar is the world's reserve currency, which gives the United States immense power. If you control the currency everyone uses, you can impose sanctions and essentially cut countries off from the global financial system. BRICS is not a fan of this arrangement, but perhaps the most concrete example of how they work is their flagship achievement, the New Development Bank. This is a real physical bank they created from scratch. It's their alternative to the World Bank. Instead of having to go to Washington for a loan to build a bridge or a power plant, a developing country can now go to the BRICS Bank. It's one thing to complain about the rules of the game. It's another thing entirely to build your own stadium and start your own league. So, where does this all go? What does the future hold for this eclectic crew? On one hand, the potential for BRICS to fundamentally reshape the 21st century is enormous. The economic center of gravity is undeniably shifting from the west to the east and south. The recent push for expansion with countries like Saudi Arabia, Iran, Egypt, Ethiopia, and the UAE joining or being invited to join shows that the brand is attractive. In a best-case scenario for the group, BRICS evolves into a serious counterweight to the G7. This is the grand vision, a truly multipolar world where power is more diffuse, more balanced, and hopefully, more just. However, the whole thing could just as easily fall apart. The internal contradictions within BRICS are massive. The biggest one is the giant panda in the room, China. As China's power grows, the other members, especially India, are increasingly wary of BRICS becoming a vehicle for Chinese dominance rather than a partnership of equals. The border clashes between India and China are not just minor squabbles, they are a serious military standoff between two nuclear-armed members. How can you build a new world order with someone you are actively confronting on your own border? It's like trying to start a band when your lead guitarist and drummer are in a fistfight. Ultimately, the future of BRICS hinges on whether its members' shared desire to challenge the West is stronger than their own internal rivalries. Can they manage the deep-seated mistrust between New Delhi and Beijing? Can Russia continue to participate meaningfully while embroiled in a major war? If they can't, BRICS could fizzle out, becoming little more than a historical footnote, a symbol of what might have been. But if they can, they might just succeed in building that new tower. And whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing, it's something you're going to want to watch.